more interesting this time around. So. All
right.
right. Well, welcome to the Broomfield Veterans Museum. I'm Kim Spickard, Navy vet. I've been with the museum for about, I think, 5 years now. I work for Excel Energy and came here on our day of service where Excel employees volunteer in the community along with community members. And Mike Fellows, who happened to be in the office that day, asked me to think about volunteering, which I did, and about 2 months later asked me to be the treasurer. And he said, you only have to write a couple checks every month or so. Well, he didn't mention taxes and all sorts of other things, but I've been doing that for 5 years now. I'm in my 5th year on the board. So is this your first time at a coffee and conversation, anybody? A few. Okay, good. Well, we do this every 2 weeks. And, coming up, I just wanted to mention a few, especially on June 8th. Some guy has my name is going to be on here doing a presentation. So I'm sure if we get a tenth of what Jimmy got today, I'll be happy. So,
he's an imposter.
He's an imposter. So we got Jeff Davis coming up on May 11th, 28 years in the Marine Corps, retired as a colonel. A lot of colonels come around here, lose a colonel. So I guess that's kind of a tradition. Tracy Perry on May 25th, Air Force veteran. Myself on June 8th, Navy veteran. And then Flint Whitlock, who's done a number of presentations, will be talking again. And let's see, he's, I'm not sure, his talk will be about the book Depths of Courage, American Submariners at War with Japan. So, and if you notice in our museum, we have a display on the USS Tang. So, World War II submarine that sank itself accidentally with a torpedo. So, one of the crew members on the Tang was a Broomfield resident. So, that's what's coming up. Today we have Jimmy Graham. Now, I met Jimmy, he didn't know this, but I met him when he was 8 years old.
I know that.
His mom and I were in kindergarten all the way through our senior year in high school together. And when I met Jimmy, his dad just married Nancy and went over to their house. And that's when I met that side of the family. And Jimmy's dad's a Vietnam veteran. I think you'll probably mention that today as well. And but I thought, I reached out to Nancy. Thought I'd say, can you give me an embarrassing story about Jimmy that I could share? And she thought it'd be a good idea, but she didn't send me an embarrassing story, but she sent me one of character and, a family member. Do you know Richard Dominic Huffman?
Absolutely.
Okay, I figured you would. So anyway, we always have this vision of Navy SEALs, being the tough guys, and they are, there's no doubt about that, but you don't think about the softer side or the other side of what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. And so Nancy sent me this story. She had a family member just happened to be in town, I guess. He doesn't live in that area.
Right.
So said, growing up, I thought Jimmy was the coolest guy on earth. Looking back, I realized that the reason wasn't just because he was a strong, powerful military man. How old is he?
He is, I'm guessing, about 30.
30 now? Okay.
Maybe late 20s.
The reason I looked up to him was even though he could have been a jerk, he chose to be kind and respectful. I remember once when I was with family and I called Jimmy's name, he turned and said, "Yes, sir." He threw me for a loop as I grew up thinking sir was a title for an adult man. The fact that Jimmy felt I was worth the same level of respect that he gives to others just blew my mind. Richard Dominic Huffman, April 23rd, 2019. So that's the impact you've had on family members, and I'm sure you've had that same impact. I've been down to Jimmy's business down in Centennial area, and I want to get back down there, so look forward to hearing more about that. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Is this a mic or is this just for the camera? Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Wow. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, that is my nephew. So that's very, very cool. Some kind words. I didn't really know the format for what is normal here. I was asked to come in and just kind of share whether it be my story, my testimony, my military time. That is a piece of it. I didn't go super heavy into the SEAL team stuff because there's so much more, and that's, I wanted, if you would allow me, to just kind of go through kind of the story that got me to be standing here today. So here we go. And then we'll have some obvious time for questions. So when right now I train people, yes, sir, question already.
You're a Navy SEAL?
Yes, sir.
I'm Delta.
Right on. Thanks for your service.
I went through Navy SEAL training though.
Right on. Appreciate that. So this is the why. We talk about, the things that we see right now in the schools, the scares, the attacks that are happening. I propose an answer for that involves responsible citizens, veterans, people that are going to go in law enforcement. Obviously, the level of training that I have seen, been privileged to have seen throughout my career, it wasn't okay with me to get out and see that it wasn't that wasn't the level that the same people would have heading into my daughter's school, my daughter's church, something like that. Our mission became, can we bridge that gap? So that's what I do now. The why that I tell people, if I go into a school, I just did this last week and pulled up a picture of all of their students that I'd had because it's my daughter's school. So this is the why. This is my why. So all of the stuff that that I'm talking about today, I had a great conversation with my new friend Perry over here. Was asking me about when did you know it was time to leave? I didn't retire. I got out prior to retirement and asked me when did you know? And I was like, I knew I didn't have a family then, but I knew that I wanted to head down that road. I talked to some of my wise counsel, if you will, the SEAL teams. That's pretty much all I can speak to. But in the military, a lot of times it's tough, obviously, on all the families. But we would have some of those guys I would talk to and talk about the ball and chain and the kids are such a pain and all that kind of stuff. Then I would talk to the other guys, the I trusted guys, and they're like, it's amazing. The reason I'm doing this, I'm not doing it to them, I'm doing it for them. And it's absolutely amazing. So this is my family. This is Rachel. This is Rebecca, Sarah, Christian, and then Eden. This is a little bit of an old picture. So now this one's going to be 11 in May. This one turns 10 months in May. Oh, thank you, brother. Obviously, background, U.S. Navy SEAL teams for a little over 15 years. This is that 11-year-old, if you can believe that. Look at that kid. I tell people, this is my son. And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. This is back to me in the day. Amazing opportunity to be able to serve in that capacity. Wanted to share after active duty. What happened after active duty? In my time, in 2004, this was different. This active shooter response, these threats, all that kind of stuff. To be a vet coming out, I went to some vet programs, and some of them were the job placement thing. And I typed in, oh dang it, I think it's called a UIC. The for SEAL is 5326. And I typed it into their data thing, and it said, hey, these are the jobs that you're good for. And it was warehouseman and truck driver. And it was the general ones that will come up on any one of them because they didn't know how to classify it. So it was a little bit of a challenge, to get out and say, what am I going to do when I get out of the service? I had gone over, there was a company that as soon as I got out, we used to lease a range in North Carolina, the SEAL teams did, and we'd lease it for weeks at a time, and we'd go out there and shoot guns and machine guns and blow stuff up and all that. When I got out, they were I was talking to some buddies, and I was like, I'm going to stay reserves, but if you know how the reserves work, you got to go get a job. This is going to be the part-time deal. And then you're going to go, get a job. And I put in a package with the federal government to be a protective officer, basically a bodyguard overseas. And it just takes forever. You guys know this. The government doesn't move quickly. Well, in the service date was coming up, and it's hey, it's time to go. So we're getting ready to go, and a buddy of mine goes, hey, you know that range we go to? Why don't you call Blackwater USA, because I hear they're starting to do security work. Remember, 2004 was nobody knew that word. Nobody knew that company back then. So I said, okay, I call them up on a Monday, and on a Friday, and they say, can you be here on Monday? I was like, okay, this is for protective stuff overseas, right? So I get over there, I do a really quick train up. They vet me, they do this little process, and then immediately ship off to Kuwait. So I go to Kuwait, teams are coming in, and immediately I'm put in charge because of my background. And very shortly into this trip, they put me on the ESS detail. If you've ever heard of the Euro Support Services detail in 2004, that ended in Fallujah. So in Fallujah, 4 American contractors were killed. I was on the other end of a Meridian sat phone trying to find those guys. Where are they at? It was a tough time, probably There we go.
In Iraq this evening, 4 American civilians were killed there today, and as sometimes happens, the cameras were there for the gruesome aftermath.
2 mangled corpses were hanged on a bridge over the Euphrates River. This is Fallujah, they chanted. Who asked you to come here? Aims, poked, prodded, and beaten. Fallujah stayed inside, disgusted by the attack and what followed. The crowd was violent and determined. Fallujah, they yelled, is the cemetery of America.
Do you guys remember that? You probably didn't hear about Blackwater until then. And that was basically they were subcontracting. It was a government contract. They were a subcontractor supplying people to do protective details around that country. That company got very, very big very quickly. There'll be time for questions at the end, my brother. At the end, they basically had a. I'm sorry.
I covered ground you covered.
Awesome. In Iraq, so this would be Fallujah right here. Baghdad here. In that time frame in 2004, it was kind of a different element. You'd hear about these security teams going and we're getting ambushed and all that kind of stuff. So that's stepping off into the discipline. Remember, this is a young man that spent, I think a little over 8 years active duty service, and then stepping off into that contract world. That's a little bit of a different, not a whole lot of respect for processes, for discipline. Had more discipline than I realized, but stepping off into that now as a small business owner, I look at Navy manuals and like the processes and procedures in these manuals, and I'm like, this is ingenious. Like, this is amazing. Of course, they've had a minute to figure it out. They're going through it. It dates back for forever. But without that, you get what I was dealing with. In some cases, a bunch of yahoos that are like, I'll do whatever I want kind of thing. It's just a dangerous thing. Didn't really understand how much they were building in me in boot camp, in SEAL training, in A school, and all that and going through there. As a man, I look back on that and I'm like, that is absolutely ingenious, what they were able to accomplish. So actually, newfound respect. Okay, so this is the kind of, I love me wall, if you will, just looking at different profiles and postures around the world. This is obviously SEAL team days, climbing on boats, that looks a little bit different. So that profile would be very overt, those flotation devices and all that kind of stuff in case you fall off a ship when you're boarding. This is in Kosovo. Back in the late 90s, very overt 50 cal and a grenade launcher mounted on vehicles. You guys have seen some of this stuff. The contracting world looks a little bit different. You've got, this is Baghdad, kind of plain clothes, meaning like khaki pants and a collared shirt. So driving around, you don't get a second look. Obviously, a guy with my complexion and black hair, I can kind of do whatever I want in that town, not get a second look. Now, they'd pair me up with some, blonde-haired Viking guy from Nebraska or something. I'd be like, dude, you're blowing my thing here, man. I'm trying to sneak around and you got whatever. You need to get a tan or whatever. This is in Kirkuk. A little bit later, I'll talk about that in Iraq. Pretty overt. Again, collared shirt, driving around, wouldn't get a second look, but then you got a Mark 48 and the belt-fed machine gun in the back of the car. That's kind of the newer version. If you remember the N60, the Rambo days and all that kind of stuff, this one's made by FN. But a big 7.62 belt-fed machine gun, collapsible paratrooper stock, so it's like literally could be in the back of like a Civic or something. Over here, this is Kabul, Afghanistan. Still working. I've got this vest is an Afghani vest that I had sewn magazines sewn into them. So it's like you're trying to drive around and look inconspicuous, but still very capable. This is in Beirut, in Lebanon. This is closer to home. Obviously, a suit and tie. I'm still armed. There's a team nearby. There's weapons nearby. There's people on comms, all that. And this whole square is covered with people with assault rifles. So people are standing there with assault rifles, keeping it just because it's New Year's. Thousands of people in a square. That's their life. I had the opportunity to go to a Christmas service on Christmas morning in Beirut, Lebanon. Very cool. A message just like you would hear in a church here, except they're thanking God that there were no bombs this year, praying that you'd make it through this Christmas morning without some kind of violent encounter. You talk about faith. I was like, that's awesome. I'm like, this is like amazing that people would come here this morning knowing kind of what they're up against. So very, very cool. Okay, Tripoli, Libya, 2012. Obviously the Fallujah thing started. After that package did go through my federal government paperwork, and then I got a call from some buddies, met up with them, and was approached by a gentleman that worked for the CIA. And he said, let's go grab some lunch. And we went to this cheesy, like, strip mall Chinese restaurant, and we're just kind of chatting. And he's like, hey, do you want to come train for us? I was teaching at that point as a civilian, still in the reserves, SEAL teams back on the base in Little Creek. I did some dream chasing out in Montana, and I shared with Perry that I'd moved out there post that. But at that time, I was training SEAL team guys as a civilian trainer. And nothing fancy or sexy like in the movies. It was like this mediocre Chinese joint. And he's like, hey, do you want to come for work for me? And I was like, well, what are we talking about? Well, I've seen you teach. I want you to come in and teach these guys protective officer training. It's called GRS, Global Response Staff. Has anybody seen the movie 13 Hours? Okay, so that movie depicts global response staff officers. In 2012, they were in Benghazi, Libya, when a State Department facility was attacked. They responded to that facility. They were delayed, and don't even get me started on that whole deal. But lost several good guys that day. That mission, I was doing that for about 6 years, being a lead instructor, training those guys to try to get, to go out and just to take care of one another, take care of people overseas. A lot of times you will have people deployed overseas, as you know, because there's many movies about it. 13 Hours is one of them, in the intelligence community. A lot of times those people don't have a background like this, and they're just not very good at handling themselves in that kind of situation. So they would assign guys like myself and others to protect them. We'd live with them, we'd travel with them, we'd do all this stuff. So pretty much anywhere there's like a critical or a high-risk area overseas, there's probably like a GRS team on that base. This is what that team looked like. Obviously, I blocked out the faces of the active guys that are still potentially doing that. Again, this is my son. No, this is me back forever ago. And this guy's name is, call sign is Bub, Glenn Doherty. And if you know that name, he's one of the SEALs that went up on the roof during that encounter. Got there the next day. There was a line. I need a plane and a bag of money or something. They were in trouble, so they acquired a plane. They flew from Tripoli to Benghazi, showed up the next day. Those guys had held down the fort all night, get all remaining survivors back to the Benghazi annex, and then obviously went up to the roof to check in with Tyrone Wood, call sign Roan, and the mortars came in. And both of those guys, unfortunately, lost their lives. Great guy. It's kind of ironic that we're holding a Free Libya t-shirt that we had all signed because one of the guys was rotating back home. This gentleman right here, his name is Wyatt, Matt Stevenson. Amazing guy. I can say his name because unfortunately a couple years ago we lost him to a heart attack. But in this picture, he was back, doing his job. Let me see if I think I've got a thing to tie into here. Oh, this is this is basically a piece of memorabilia. When I rotated into Benghazi, Libya, and was the team lead 3 weeks prior to the attack. Rotated out on our planned rotation to go back to Tripoli and back home, so I was in Castle Rock when I got the call from my buddy Matt, the guy I just told you about, and it simply said, have you seen the news? Like, that's not a good text from your buddies overseas. And I looked it up, saw the pictures you saw, Benghazi, on fire. Ambassador Stevens' face. American ambassador killed in Benghazi, Libya. Immediately got on the phone. I remember where I was at. I was coming down the Mesa, down to I-25 in Castle Rock, heading to Denver for a business seminar to try to learn how to start a business. Called back to Langley and said, what do you guys need? And they're like, we need you back right now. So I got little babies. I tell my wife, I got to go back. She's like, you just got home. You've been home a week. So basically I went from Benghazi to Tripoli for about a week. Went debrief back in D.C. and was back in Castle Rock for about a week. She's like, the reinforcements are here. Take these babies. And I'm like, I got to go. She's like, what happened? And I let her know. So from here, this is a license plate, a Libyan license plate that was signed by the, cheers, brother. Have a good one.
Bring back too many bad memories.
I got you, brother. Have a good weekend. A Libyan license plate that was signed when I left Benghazi. So some of these names you're going to recognize. You're seeing, Oz and Tig and Roan and Husky was Bob, the chief of base. All these people, my call sign's Jefe. So I've seen people and they're like, man, this ain't your plate, this is Jeff's plate. That doesn't say Jeff, that's Spanish for chief. Jefe. So that's my call sign. So when these guys left, hey, thanks. This is a person that worked over there, female. She said to my fighting instructor, thanks for everything, Melrose Place. The reason she said that's an inside joke, because the GRS guys would train people to handle themselves. We'd go out to punching bags in the weight room and try to get people to be in better shape, to how to defend themselves, how to get their hands up and defend themselves in case something happens. And we would work with that all the time, but there was so much drama going on. You guys know the deal. If you've been in the military or the government, you see the movies and they're all super cool, everybody's all professional. they're human beings. So there's people drinking too much and sleeping around and doing all that. So I called it Melrose Place with guns. I'm like, I'm here to take care of you guys, but you're like a bunch of kids, whatever. So that was the inside joke. Obviously, the guys that you're talking about that are traveling now and speaking and doing all that, this is Tyrone Wood. He wrote 3.0 T.D. He's a motorhead. I'm a motorhead. I like vehicles and four-wheel drives, and many of you probably do too. There's a vehicle called a Hilux, a Toyota Hilux that they use overseas. You can't get them here. The closest you can get is a Tacoma. This is a 3.0 turbo diesel Toyota engine and a small 4x4 package. And our last move together, we were on top of this thing in downtown Benghazi, and we were talking about how to illegally get that motor into my 4Runner. And I was like, man, if I drive it down to Mexico, we could put it in and drive back because it's an emissions thing. It's a blah, blah. It's a big conspiracy is what it is because the government wants it, whatever. So I was like, how can we do that? And that's what we talked about for hours upon hours. And the move went too long. And it's like, well, hey, I think it's the connectors and the transmission. We can do the whole thing and fabricate a drive shaft, whatever. And that obviously means a lot to me now that he's not with us any longer. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a little...
Libyan visa. Official. Pull over for inspection. Sorry, sir, I can't do that. Pull over for inspection.
I'm not allowing you to die for your country. I'm going to go fight you right now.
Everybody, this is Jack Silva. Good. We train SEALs at Coronado, so he knows the drill.
Welcome to the club, man.
We need immediate assistance. We are overrun.
It's under attack. Let's go, man. It's under attack. Let's go. We gotta move.
If you do not get here soon, or you're all gonna die.
The U.S. ambassador.
The ambassador is in his safe haven. You're not the first responders. You're the last resort. You will wait.
None of you have to go. But we are the only help they have. You're not giving orders anymore. You're in my world now.
We have 36 American lives to save.
Again, make it very clear I wasn't there during that, but the guys that came back, we had a beer, debriefed and all that. The book, and then the following movie, very accurate from what they've told me personally. Obviously Hollywood gets involved and throws little spins and twists and adds some excitement and all that kind of stuff. But according to what happened there, I can obviously speak to what I saw, the layouts and the landscape and the kind of the threat. They kind of portrayed that well. But according to the guys that were there, so they consulted on it. The guy, these are the guys, Bub and Roan, the two SEALs that lost their lives that day. And then this guy depicted Jack Silva was the fake name that they gave him. Was actually a SEAL team buddy of mine. Phenomenal guy. Same thing. They all contributed on the book because they felt the story needed to be told because of what happened there and the failure on our systems. The one that chose to leave his name out of the books and all that. Phenomenal guy. I caught up with him last year. Went fly fishing with his kids. Hanging out, phenomenal guy that chose to kind of stay out of that. The other guys, obviously, they're talking and going around and doing the thing. They can't work anymore. They can't deploy. Their faces are all over everything. So they're trying to make a living, but they don't look happy. They just kind of look like they're doing it because they got to do it. They were never aspired to be spokespeople for this and doing all that kind of stuff, but that's kind of where they're at. This guy, from all accounts from Jimmy Graham assessment, he's doing great. He was raising a family, starting a business, doing all that kind of stuff, and very proud of those guys. These are the two guys. This is Tig and Oz. Both those guys live here in Colorado. Down south, one Pueblo area down there in a ranch, and the other one in Colorado Springs. I believe right now, I can't remember if Oz took a position or not with the NRA. I think that he was stepping up and running for something there. I should know that. And then Tig, we see him pop up all the time on social media on, like gun manufacturers and some sporting events for vets and all that kind of stuff. So phenomenal guys. Anybody seen the movie Zero Dark 30, The Hunt for Osama bin Laden? So the guy that I was in the orange shirt that I said we lost a heart attack was standing on that porch that day.
Let's go.
The powers that be basically said, you'll lift all security to talk to this guy. He's going to lead us directly to Osama bin Laden. We don't do that. They're like, you will do that. That's exactly what you'll do.
Is he supposed to hunt like that? Get your hand out of your pocket. Hey. Come on. Hey, get your hand out of your pocket. Hey. No.
So again, the guy I was talking about, Matt Stevenson, was on that on the porch of one of the buildings where a lot of people came out to greet. Other people were still on the porch and all that. Got injured badly. Crawled around, putting tourniquets on, doing all that stuff. Saved a bunch of lives. Got a medal he could never show anybody. All that, and then ended up, like I said, just tragically losing him to a heart attack as he was still training to do that job. So phenomenal guy, a medic, trained the guys that were going out like I did. For 6 years, I was a lead instructor for the program that trained those guys. I'd go out about once a year, and then the 7th year I spent the year in Libya. Again, this guy right here, so amazing. These guys, every one of these guys, unsung heroes. You're not going to hear about them probably anywhere other than today. Obviously, some of the guys, when a movie comes out, all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, this guy's here. That there's guys that are doing that all over. Our vets, most of these guys, if not, probably actually every one of these guys is a vet. Sometimes you get SWAT guys and all that kind of stuff that didn't serve in the armed forces, but amazing people that are doing this. And contractor has a kind of a negative connotation. All of these guys are working for the U.S. government. They're being subcontracted by a company to do it. Why? Because we asked them to. Because we need them to. Because there's not enough military or a branch dedicated to do that, and that's what they do. So I've got my mixed feelings about it as far as personally because of the time away and the lack of benefits and the structures and all that. But again, unsung heroes just like the guys filling this room and gals. This is post Benghazi. So I did end up going back. Was the first team back to Benghazi, located some of the vehicles. There were some meetings going on, doing all that, but we had to come back that day because there was no place. It was burned out. There was no place to go. So back to Tripoli. This is the fast company of Marines that showed up. Every time I show this, they look younger. I'm like, wow, that it's like in reality, that's who's been winning wars for us and securing this nation was young men. So, and if everybody says the youth today and the kids today, because we demand not enough from them. And if you did, they'd win us a war. I firmly believe that. I see it in the young kids. I was speaking at a school the other day, my daughter's school. It's a Kingsway Christian Academy school, and I see it in them. We're just not asking enough. I mean, some people are, don't get me wrong. Not all, this isn't a blanket statement, but this thing that I see in the young kids I talk to, I recognize. My son, I'm in trouble. When I look into his eyes, man, he's ornery as hell, and I'm going to get it. But I dig it, and I know it's up to me to guide him and all that, and I've been, blessed with guiding him through that life. But man, he's absolutely amazing, and you can't convince me otherwise. Oh, this is the seal. This isn't at the embassy actually. This is at the annex in Tripoli. This seal though came from the embassy that was burned out during the revolution the year before. But nobody touched it because they figured if we touch that, they're going to come for it. So they left it right in the floor, that burned out building. So somebody from our organization grabbed it and we put it in our team room to hang us up to remind us, but they wanted to borrow it for a picture. Okay, in 2012, my wife and I had been, there's a kind of a saying in the military, there's a saying in contracting, this one, maybe one more, then I'm going to go do my thing. Okay, whether it's a deployment, whether it's an enlistment, I think I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna go do my thing. So I'd heard that so many times and met too many people that they're not around to do their own thing. So when I knew that I wanted to have a family, I didn't have a family at the time, but that's what led me out. I was called to do something else, and I love the fact that I served. Sometimes regret. I got my peer group are all the Master Chiefs and commanders and all this stuff. Captain, one buddy just made captain, all this stuff. Amazing. So part of that I miss. The other part gets to raise 4 kids. I don't know. Like that same thing people say, a gentleman said it today. He's like, hey, they could have used you in Benghazi. Like, man, they really could have. That'll be a conflict probably for the rest of my life. And you guys understand this. Part of me wishes I was there. Let me tell you why. The guy that was there that I rotated out with, it wasn't Roan. In the movie, they made it look like Roan was the team lead. He wasn't. There was another guy there. They left out of the movie altogether. You can kind of see him mentioned in the book, but he was a little more passive. He wasn't as aggressive. I don't believe he was a vet, but that contributed with the delay. I get it, they were ordered to stand down, but I still don't understand, and I'm not armchair quarterbacking at all. But in part of me feels like if I'd have been there, they'd have left earlier. There might be an ambassador alive today. I don't know that, that's in God's hands. However, part of me wishes that I was there so I could make a difference. The other part says you would have been on that roof because you're the TL, and that was the main building, and I get to raise 4 kids. So I take that very seriously. This is Oz, Mark Geist, the guy in the movie that almost lost his arm. It's like hanging by a thread. And that's a true story, by the way, when he was playing with it. Look at this. Hey, man, check this out. He's like, dude, stop doing that. You're going to make it worse. Like, it was barely hanging on. And I was like, you can't be, tie that thing off. You can't be looping it around and stuff. And it actually saved his arm. He's got about, in this picture, because this is in 2013 when we basically closed on a building called Duty to Act LLC. Obviously, that duty to contribute and say, we need people more capable knowing what they're doing. The good guys deserve better training, period. It's like this, you guys know from the military, from federal government, even from businesses, we don't share nice. Why? Because if I got a thing that makes me really cool, and if I share it with you, that makes me less cool. You know, that ship has sailed. We've got to start getting on the right page to make sure, this officer in Florida that didn't respond to the school, you know what his nickname is? Has anybody heard the Coward of Broward? How's that for a handle for the rest of your life? You didn't go into a building when kids were getting shot, and if you boil it down far enough, he didn't know how. Has he ever done a single person entry into a room where it's hostile? We owe him that training. So he'll wear it. The training department guy won't. The chief of police won't. Nobody else will. Him. That guy, he's going to wear that. I'd never want that on anybody to say, hey man, we asked you to do a job we didn't train you to do, but now we're gonna that's your new handle for like forever. That's bad stuff. It's irresponsible stuff. That responsibility and even some of that obligation and negligence goes further down the chain. So Mark came up. He was undergoing surgeries at the time, but he saw what we were doing. He's like, hey, that's exactly what they need. So he brought his family up. They were further south at that time, but they all came up for a ribbon cutting thing that's put on by the Chamber of Commerce. So I was sharing with Perry earlier that in 2012 to now has not been a smooth road. We've been in survival mode till probably last year. Then we launched in 2015. We got an opportunity to work out of the Centennial Gun Club, their old building. They had moved into a new building. The building they started in was right next door, and this was our launch video. If you remember, it was a different time in 2015. This freaked people out quite a bit. People probably watch it more now than they ever did in 2015, because now it's pretty much every week. And we suggested that the response come from within, meaning we're now training internal security response teams to businesses, churches, and schools. And this is actually filmed in a church in Castle Rock with many of the church security team members, meaning the immediate response. There's first responders, there's immediate response. Sol Pais, everybody know that name? She shut down our state. Basically, I think it was 600,000 kids, if I heard correctly, didn't go to school that day because of a young lady with some issues, obviously, bought a shotgun, infatuated with Columbine and all that. We had a team ready to post up around my daughter's school. all of them trained with documented training, with certificates, with the whole thing. Like, you want to have school, we're having school. Told the principal that. Then she followed suit from Douglas County. I don't blame her. And she said, we're going to cancel school. But we also had an active shooter drill planned for that day. Then they canceled it. Then they put it back. And they said, this is the perfect day to do this. The kids aren't here. Let's do the drill. And one of the teachers actually had to engage a hostile shooter in the building. Now, do I say arm all teachers? I don't, actually, because that's not a one-size-fits-all. But some teachers actually are very responsible and choose that as their, concealed carry, all this other stuff. We started a program since from 2012 to 2015, to 2017. We were trying to train, but we couldn't find out what that barrier was. Like police, they know it. I don't want to, we got a guy, whatever. Security teams, all that kind of stuff. It's very hard to break down, but in 2017, something amazing happened. It's been on my mind for a while to start this thing, more not for what people needed, because they didn't even know what they needed. They don't even know enough about this stuff to know what they need. But what I wanted to do, which is kind of weird, sounds kind of selfish, like, I'm sick of teaching these classes, these one and done, here's a gun, shoot it, call it good thing. I've never been taught like that. I don't enjoy teaching like that. So we created a system called Able Shepherd. And the name of that came from the sheepdog movement, if you're familiar with that, which I absolutely support and I agree with. But I was also studying at Liberty University, religion and psychology. And I was saying, they missed something here. How do you have a conversation? If you're not familiar with the sheepdog movement, it basically came from a Vietnam vet, a statement he made to Colonel Grossman, which is an amazing man, and he's leading the charge in many ways on this. And he said, people are sheep. And that's not a bad thing. It just means you're good people and you're going to work and you're doing this and you're providing for your family. He goes, and then there's wolves. And wolves prey on sheep and they want bad things to happen to you. He goes, me, I'm a sheepdog. I live to confront the wolf. I'll stand in the gap and protect people. And like I said, I absolutely agree with it. However, it wasn't biblical. I couldn't find that. And I was like, what are you talking about? But what kept coming up in my mind over and over again was a shepherd. How do you have that conversation and not talk about a shepherd? Now that I could find over and over and over. So Able Shepherd, not Abel and Cain kind of Abel, Able meaning capable, and shepherd meaning exactly. I tell people regularly, don't be the mad grandpa. What does that mean? I've got one of these in my family, and I love him to death, but he is the guy staring at the horizon, and he's all postured up, and he's all pissed off all the time. Well, let me tell you what kids see. He's mad, maybe at me, and I think he's dangerous. I love him and all, I just don't want him at Thanksgiving. You're missing the best part. Like, that whole thing can never be misconstrued for some kind of aggression or violence towards your family. And if you figure it out too late, that's a bad deal. Like, what do you mean they're scared of me? I'm protecting them. Now, in his mind, he's the protector. He's looking out. He's doing this thing, but he's not seeing any fruit because they're scared of him. That is tragic. So what does that mean? It means I found a way, like by the grace of God, to basically make this enjoyable and to give people community. And I could share this too with Perry. Favorite part of my job is that I get to take people that maybe are veterans or maybe they were in the police officers or whatever, and then reintroduce community. And once you show them that community that the military gave them, they're not going anywhere. They just want to hang out and shoot and do all this stuff. Obviously, the training's very good, or they would leave. Like I said, this Navy SEAL thing, this will get you walking the door. But if there's no substance, you're back out of here. So you better have something to present. And then, if you take somebody who's never experienced that camaraderie and brotherhood and all that from the military, and you show them, they're not going anywhere. Because they've just been getting by. They're surviving. They're going to work, providing for their family, and they're coming home, and something's missing, and we're not made for that. Then you show them a community that says, we're not only taking care of people, we're going to movies. We volunteer all the time. We're doing all this stuff. There's a church, and they're having a big event in Denver. I need armed volunteers as safety teams to augment the police. And I go meet with the cops, and they go, thank you for being here. And the last one I did, they were saying, all the planners from the church, they said, and the police were there, and they said, okay, guys, I got to ask. Somebody starts shooting in a crowd. What do we do? And the officer goes, you want to take this one? I go, I do. And I let it. It's like, this is what we do. And we went down the whole plan. I said, our guys will be in white shirts, and they're going to have this symbol, and they're just going to help pass out, check backpacks, and pass out water, and do all that kind of stuff. They're just here. And they were like, thank you. Because it took their, 5 to 8 man thing to like, I don't even know, 20 or something. So that was amazing. And what I found is it's in people. They want to do it. They want to be a protector. It's out there written that way. I didn't make them that way. So that's exactly what we do. We started doing that, and we created a process saying you have to pass this to go here. And I've had people say, ooh, you don't want to test people because they won't come. I'm like, that's exactly what they wanted. Why? Because they've been in elite shooting groups where guys like, hey man, how about you and me go shoot that barrel? And guys like, whoa, hey, that's not okay. You're pointing a gun at everybody and it's not safe. Then we said, you got to be safe or you don't move on. And they love it. So we say elite level training appropriately. Oh, by the way, able shepherd comes from Psalm 78, 72 that said, and David shepherded them with integrity of heart, with skillful hands he led them. And I believe that's what we're doing today. It just looks different. Is that the way David meant it? Absolutely. That's exactly what he meant. He just meant with whatever swords and whatever. But we mean the same thing. In the integrity of your heart is more important, if it is just as important, if not more, than the skillful hands. You can shoot, great. Who can't? Whatever. Where's your heart at? And that's the part they needed the most. That's just a fun thing we do, going and shooting guns and moving around cars and putting tourniquets on people and dragging them and doing all that kind of stuff. Elite level training appropriately scaled. Appropriately scaled means I'm not trying to make Navy SEALs or Delta operators or anything like that. We're saying we'll meet you where you're at, you move at your own pace. Have a good time doing it. It's a very light way to cover a very serious and heavy problem that our nation's having right now. And then we had phases. What's our motto? Kill them all, let God sort them out. No, it's take care of one another. That's it. That's the whole deal. Take care of one another. Not only is our motto for our students, it's our ethos for our business. Like at my employees, I don't just want you to make a paycheck. How you doing? We got a Bible study that meets twice a month in our building, and then I'm part of one that meets every Friday early in the morning, like holistically. How you doing? What's going on? Financially, physically, spiritually, all that kind of stuff. Why? Because it matters. You've heard of run, hide, fight. And this is where I'm just kind of talking about what we do now because I believe in it so much. Run, hide, fight was a good start, but it really, if you know anything about any of this, it's not enough. It was the way it was delivered was run. If you can't run, then hide. If you can't do both of those, then fight, but we're not going to show you how because that's a liability. Okay? That's irresponsible. You can't just say run, hide, fight. You good? Questions? Okay, I got to go to another school. That's very irresponsible because it's being played out all the time. So our acrostic, you know what acrostic is? I thought it was an acronym. I had to look it up. An acrostic is a word that spells a bunch of words or whatever. So anyways, I know you knew that. I did not. Defend training modules, they're not in order. So say you're Sandy Hook and somebody shoots out your front glass and you're a teacher and you're looking at an 80-pound kid with his mom's gun. Run and hide is not an option right now. You just got inserted in the fight, but they didn't know how. And then they were shot and then somebody walked in and hurt a bunch of kids. That's not okay. So it's not, you don't get to pick your challenge and it's not linear. You can't go chronologically through these things. The situation will present itself. Defense, evacuate, fortify, emergency medical aid, notify others in your immediate area, dial 911. And they're not in order. So maybe you just ran out the door and dialed 911. You may have saved a bunch of people just by doing that. Maybe you chalked a door because you didn't have a choice. But I'll tell you, I've been into schools before and they go, what are you going to do? I'm going to get something, I'm going to barricade that door. Can you go ahead and do that? What should I use? You tell me, it's your plan. I don't know, let's check the book. It says, use something to block the door. Okay, there's nothing that'll do it. Then take it out of your plan. Because it's not a good plan. Just do it, show me. I went to, I won't say the school, but it's that, in the greater Denver area. And I said, there's cops outside, there's firefighters and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and do this drill. What should we do? And they go, well, let's find the plan first. And then I'm like, one, you're looking for the binder. There's never gonna be time to look for the binder. So I open the binder and they go, it says to pull a fire alarm. Pull a fire alarm for active shooter? Yep, pull a fire alarm, because with firemen come police. Can we do that right now? Yeah, they're all outside. Hey guys, call dispatch and tell them we're going offline, we're gonna take the system, and we're gonna pull the fire alarm. Okay, yeah, go ahead and do it. Okay, I send a guy in there with a pistol, and he just starts going pop, 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 and they pull the fire alarm, and all the fire doors close and lock. So now the cops show up and they can't get in. Key, who's got the key? Now they're behind glass doors, fully exposed, looking for a key. Then it's like, well, where's the box? It's up there. You need a ladder because firemen have ladders. Now they got a ladder in front of a glass door, and there's a guy with a gun right there trying to get the key to the building. Until you do it, you just don't know. So that's kind of the stuff we're talking about. It's got to make sense. Remember those processes we talked about? They're brand new at this. They haven't been doing this for 200 years. They don't know. So that's what we're doing. Defense. Teach them how to fight. Even at a basic level, you know how to strike another human being and not hurt yourself. And displace energy in there. Maybe defense means firearms. Like I said, there's schools, churches, all that. We're training armed people now to do this stuff responsibly. Because the hardest thing, if somebody came in right now and heard gunshots upstairs, the hardest thing in the world for that guy to do is make it through that door. Because I'm not going to let him. I'm going to stand here and say, get over there, and we have a posture that says to get to them, you got to go through me. But now I'm not going to let you. but there's got to be a capability there. Doesn't take a whole lot of skill to shoot somebody walking out the door, but I'll tell you what people do, they shoot everybody that walks through that door. So what do? You put in women that run in like this. No, 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 get behind me. You get behind me. You get behind me. Pop, pop, pop. And we drill it over and over and over again. Because 75% of people, when you get the heart rate up, they shoot everybody. Doesn't matter who runs through there. It's a bad deal. You got to know that before it happens. So defense can be a varying broad thing. Evacuate. Don't just tell the kids to get outside and stand by the pole. Why? Because that pole's still within firearm range. Walk them down the street to another business that you've already it's called a reunification point. I've met them. We've already talked about it. We walk down there regularly. Now, if I look at a little girl and say, Rebecca, get all these kids down to, Butter Braids. Have you heard of Butter Braids?
Yeah.
That was our place. Those people are amazing. I know them. They're going to my church, or they used to. And we talked to them and everything. I said, if I sent 100 kids this way, would you take care of them? You bet we would. With our lives. We'd put them in the back. We'd feed them. We'd keep them, it's like 5 degrees outside. I don't care if it's an active shooter or it's a gas leak. Get in here, kids. We're going to call your parents. We're going to get this process. We're going to take care of you. You're our kids now. So that's all got to be worked out prior to. Fortify, we talked about that, emergency medical aid. If you know how to put a tourniquet on and maybe do some wound packing, you can save some 1-hour class. Everybody knows how to do it, and you can do it and absolutely save a life if they're savable. That's a big deal. Notify others could be you screaming or hitting a button on the wall. You hit a button on the wall, bigger buildings, churches, schools, you would think you'd hear gunshots. You will not. A couple closed doors, a couple turns, you don't hear anything. You're still working, and there's people getting massacred. You need to know. So automated systems that sometimes can be very inexpensive. You hit a button, everybody hears it, they get outside, and they didn't even realize it was a real thing. And you save their lives. Again, because you hit the button, save their lives, they went outside and called 911. And that saved your life. So that's a big deal, but it's got to be thought about, got to be taught. So this is kind of what we do now. Professional response, police officers, they got to know how to shoot. They got to know how to not shoot. Why? Because most of the things they'll see are not targets. They're good people. And I hear it all the time, but they were running right for me. Why do you think that is? Run, hide, fight. You're standing in front of the exit. You told them to last week. That's why they're running. They're not attacking you. These guys are real medics, and they didn't know how to put kids on that stretcher. We had to stop filming because they won't fit. I'm like, I can make them fit. Show me. We had to stop filming and then do it. They know now. This is our latest video. If you've heard of Daniel Defense, we just got sponsored by them. They sent us 2 rifles to convert to sim guns. Those rounds we're shooting aren't real rounds, obviously. So we made a video using their products and then try to make it all cool, and then they loved it and whatever. And it's fun, my guys love it. Hey, we're gonna make a video over Centennial Defense. Oh, and can I get some volunteers? And then 50 people show up. So that guy owns a gym. That guy is he's a controller for finance controller for a large IT company. That guy owns the Chick-fil-A down the street. Gives every member that passes our program 50% off because he wants us in our store, more than like cops and firefighters. So we say uniform, safe, and accurate. That's our standard, USA standard. Uniform, safe, and accurate. Uniform, we're all on the same page. Safe, you should never see them pointing their guns at each other. Accurate, you gotta hit what you're shooting at. How do they know how to do this? Because we showed them. We showed them, it probably took them a year to get to this point, and now they do these amazing things. And they're not talking right now, on me, and then they walk and everybody goes in a position. It's like a foreign language. They just know because they took the time to learn. Think those guys like doing that? Do you think it makes them feel 10 foot tall going home that night? It does. And they needed it. They're like, I feel like I could do this. I feel like I could take my kid or my grandkid and get them from A to B and do it correctly. You think I like teaching it? Who do you think gets the most out of this program? You're right, me. So, unfortunately, I just lost one of the guys in the picture when I was in the, man, I haven't done this before. Are we okay on time? This guy. Good looking guy. Top performer guy. Amazing guy. Beautiful wife. Teenage kids. Took his own life last year. Vet. Active duty, actually. Nobody knew. We got those people that were like, I can see that guy. That guy, he wasn't that guy. He was the other guy. He's the guy everybody wanted on his team, but nobody knew. He should be running one of these, just like me. He could run a community. He needed a mission. The SEAL team mission had played out for him. It wasn't a good fit. It was time to go, but he had gotten out once, and he had tried to do something, I think financial or business manager, something like that. It didn't work out. So nobody knew it, but he was dying on the inside. I hope that there are more vets doing something like this, whether it's with us or anybody else. But this is what our special events look like. People are happy and they're loving it. And I'll lease a facility in Denver and they drive in, they do these fun things and all that kind of stuff. And it's absolutely amazing. And that's what I hope that we can do more. Why? Because our nation needs us. I consider this continued service. And I love it. It wasn't always that way. Like I said, for 7 years. We're on year number 7. Till last year, we were in survival mode. I took a job with the railroad. I took a job with a fundraising company. Did whatever I had to do, but then I would teach at night. I'd come home covered in creosote from working construction on the railroad. My wife's like, "You're not bringing those clothes in." I'm like, "I'm not even staying. I'm ripping all this stuff off to go teach police how to shoot guns." And it was crazy. But thankfully we were blessed. Last month we were on the Outdoor Channel for our 4th episode. Why? Because our nation is asking. They're dying for this kind of stuff. And I, again, telling my buddy Perry, everything I've done my entire life has led me to right here, like this spot talking to you. That's amazing to be able to share what we know and we've learned because we do it every single day with the nation. So that one, if you check it out, type in Outdoor Channel or Jimmy Graham or something like that. And it was in a 2-part series on active shooter in schools, and it was aired nationally. We started a 501c3 called Able Nation. Why? Because a lot of churches can't afford security. They can't afford radios. They can't afford those buzzers to get in. Those are expensive. To buy them and to install them, they're expensive, so we started helping out. Why? Because me and my buddy, my COO, he's an older gentleman that took me under his wing and showed me how to do business. Because I have nothing. I got nothing. I just want to teach people. I'm learning. But he is an amazing guy, a patriotic guy, and filled in the gap for me. And then he started this, and we back it, and we just show up with med kits and say, "Here, this is free." These are 20. We did a gala and invited people to a dinner, and we talked about it, and we bought 22 $300 med kits, and they're dispersed all over, well, really the country, but throughout Colorado and Maine and Montana. Why? Because I need them. And what was the message? Take care of one another. Did you guys need it? We're good. Take care of your people. Do you have training? Because we got free training, or we can hook you up with somebody locally. Okay, we'll come into your church or your school. This year we depart on a motorcycle ride. I was just talking to Kim about this. Let's see, June 10th we roll out to go to straight west all the way to the coast, up to Washington State, linking up with a SEAL team buddy, staying 3 days. Then we're heading to Glacier National Park, down through Yellowstone, and then back to Denver. Honoring our past, defending our future is what it's called, lineage ride. So we're honoring our past. This is, it's for kids, obviously. Got a trailer, support vehicles, trucks going, all this stuff. This is my dad, whom we lost last year in a motorcycle accident with his church buddies. They were going to a rally, and he lost control of his motorcycle for reasons unknown and took his life. He helped me. He was on a ride that I did in 2010, and it's probably the coolest thing we've ever done together. I wasn't big in sports. I wasn't, we didn't have, I remember going to Chiefs games, went from Kansas City, Royals games, all that kind of stuff. We had motorcycles. That was our deal. People say, "You still ride a motorcycle?" I do. It's like, your dad, I just got to ask. I'm like, if you took out the dangerous stuff in my life, there wouldn't be much left. We're gone. So I'm riding in his honor. It's a lot. I know it wasn't a SEAL team presentation, but neither am I. So that was a small part of a bigger story. Thanks for letting me share it.
Any questions?
Can you come back and do a SEAL team presentation?
No. Sir.
How well trained are our current church security teams? I have a security unit on our church, I see one. Are they well trained?
No.
That scares me.
It varies. It varies, but I would say, because you asked they, so that means all of them. That means averages, meaning that you can't go to a range and practice engaging people. You can to learn how to be accurate and shoot a gun, but I'm saying the best way to learn how to shoot people is to shoot people. And you can convert real guns to training rounds, is what we were doing, and shoot them. Why? Because it's a different ballgame. And I'm not talking lasers, and I'm not talking any of that. I'm talking a real person that just grabbed your neck, and you have to hit them 5 times. Then you pull a gun, and they pull a gun out, that kind of thing. So when we talk holistically, I don't see that a lot. I don't see the full thing. You can't practice the parts you like. Like I said, play it to the end. Now what do we do? Now you got a gun out, and there's a guy on the floor, and the cops come in, and they shoot you. Why? Because you're like, in your mind, you're like, I got one, boys, over here, I'm the guy. They got called the active shooter, and there's a guy with a gun, and they shoot you because it's their job. Now it's unfortunate. The run, hide, fight model, there's a video where a guy comes into the thing, and they say, if you have to, fight. So they grab a fire extinguisher, and the bad guy comes in, and they do this, and they freeze the video. And the bad guy's like this, and he almost gets hit or whatever. And I go, what if that's a cop? And they go, what do you think he's going to do if you cave his partner's head in? He's going to shoot you. And he's right. You're both right. You're saving people, protecting people, but you're over there trying to find an active shooter, but then you meet. It's unfortunate that 2 innocent people lost their lives that day, but we never trained for it. That's why I say no, respectfully. Because I say if you're doing anything, good. And if you're shooting guns and you coordinate a team and you're doing stuff, you're ahead of most. Because most people are still carrying a gun. A bunch of them, their pastor don't know. That's a slippery slope. Other questions? Ma'am.
What do you think is the biggest threat to our country?
Wow, that's a tough one. And
Repeat the question.
she asked, what do I personally think is the biggest threat to our country? Us. I'll explain. And you asked me to come, so you're going to get my answer, is that there is a foundation that we were built on, and it's a biblical one. We keep building, and then simultaneously chipping. If you're into construction, you don't have to be into construction to figure that one out. So there are consequences to that, and we're living them. Now, what does that mean for me? It means keep doing what you're doing. Take care of one another. Does it mean freak out and do whatever and go stare at the horizon and wait for Al-Qaeda? No, because that's not fair to my kids. It means community, form up, train. You saw the smiles on their faces. We're not dreading this and being pissed off at anybody. We're saying, hey, I'm capable. Now let's go to the picnic. When we go to a movie, it's the safest theater on the planet. Because there's like 50 dudes in there and they're all kind of packing, not because they have a gun, because they're trained. And not because they're trained, it's because they got the heart for it. They're not going to be bowing around and showing people their gun, check me out, you better back up. And none of that, it's not even allowed. So in Perry, I don't even allow language in my place. It's in our safety brief. Every day we read that. Because why? They hear Navy SEAL, and it's the firearm industry. So they walk in and they go, vets, and they go, yeah, I was effing over at the effing blah, blah, blah. And I go, hey, brother, can you watch your language? And they go, and it's weird for a minute. Then it goes away. I go, my kids come here, man. There's women in this room. You think that's okay? I'm sorry, brother. Hey, brother, I'm not judging. I'm the worst. My SEAL team years, that guy, he was a noun, a pronoun, an adjective, whatever. I could figure out ways to use the F word. Grew up. So that's why I say us. It's like this alpha side stuff is horrible. It's nothing to compare to what we're doing ourselves.
Great answer.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Do you contemplate or ever think about or possibly use canines?
Yeah, we partner with people that use canines, but have not yet. Both for sniffers and for direct action kind of stuff. But there's other companies. It's kind of not I am easily lose my focus and try to do 5 things at once, and I'm trying not to get into something that I don't know anything about. So the answer is no. I would partner with people that do if it ever comes up. We actually do executive protection now, both the training and the application of putting people in places. For hire, we're partnering with a company called Seca Secure that's looking to do that on not security guards, I'm talking executive protection. Something like that, we would outsource it. Sir,
Teachers armed or not?
depends on the teacher. Blanket statement, absolutely not. So some people that are a teacher and she loves teaching and she loves children more than anything and she would die before she shot a kid, that's not your person. I say, how do you train your people? How do you pick your team? If it's a church or a school, it's whatever. I say, everybody knows right now in their head, and I know 5, that person that would give their life, I know hundreds, that person that would give their life. If they didn't have a gun and somebody was shooting people, they'd go tackle that kid and lose their life doing it and wouldn't think twice. That's your guy or gal. We also know that guy who's got 50 guns. How do I know? Because he tells me every single day. And if something happened, he'd be hiding behind that chair over there. It's not your guy, not your gal. So it's a personal thing, but then it sucks to tell somebody you're not on the team. It's hard stuff. It's just necessary. Sir?
How much of the drilling in the schools is done with the kids and how much is done just you guys?
All of it is everybody, it's just separate. So basically, we've got videos where you're gonna see kids evacuating and all this. You're also gonna see a teacher shooting a bad guy. They weren't filmed on the same day. So one of them was, there's a thing called linking. And this is what training looks like. It doesn't have to be this crazy thing. This is how I train my kids. I walk out of Cabela's or Safeway and I've got groceries and I go, link to daddy. And I feel 3 little hands grab me. I feel a hand here, here, and here. Now I walk to my car, and they don't get hit by a car. How do I know that? Because I feel them. If they let go, I stop and find out why. Where'd I get that? Benghazi or GRS training. We train diplomats and say, sir, grab my shoulder. Boom. Now I'm 100%. I can fight, I can shoot, I can do whatever, but I feel you. If you let go, I stop and find out why right now. That's what they're doing, but it's not the boogeyman. But when the teachers come out, the kids aren't there anymore. Now we do the aggressive stuff. The last school we did, we watched New Zealand. The New Zealand shooting, the real one. It's graphic. I guard your heart, obviously. If it's something that you don't want to watch because you keep that stuff, then don't watch it. But it's too much data to not watch it. It's so fast and so violent and so aggressive. You can't not watch it. If you're on a security team, I say it's mandatory. Because if it upsets you, you should be on the team. You should be looking at what could I have done. And not judging, by the way. Could I have stopped them from making down that hall? What could I have done? I know people that have bought different guns because of that. They're like, I'm changing my capability. I'm going to go train more. I'm going to shoot at the range. That is horrible, and it's a lot. We picture like a guy like, hey, and he's hurting people, and you come in, oh, it's lined up perfectly, and you save the day. This wasn't that. This guy comes in, unloads a shotgun, throws it on the floor, and starts going with an AR like that. It's game day. You better have a game plan, and it better not be the first time you've done it. Any other questions? Ma'am.
Are schools starting to get into training like this?
They are. They don't advertise it for obvious reasons, but I just met yesterday with one of the counties and they're looking at kicking it up and doing everything, all of it. They're serious. They're good people. All of them are. We're all good people that are trying to do the best. And I'm not here saying my kung fu is better than your kung fu. I'm just saying the best I'm seeing is nowhere near what you could actually do. You got an old book and you're trying to find new ways to do it. No, we don't do that anymore. There's better ways to do it. It's life-saving. It's not okay to be PC about it anymore. I'm trying to offend anybody. I'm just saying, hey, if you're doing that, I can't go backwards. So good luck. We're doing this, and we keep on going. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right.
I wanted to make a comment. Yeah, let's give Jimmy.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you very much.
And we honored that you're here with the Veterans Museum today, and just thank
sir.
you for your service.
Good
and
seeing you, Kim. Thank you,
Take
brother.
this and
Thank you. That's fantastic.
you can get free coffee in the back with that coin.
Woo! Hey, man, I'll take you up on that.
Lou had mentioned to me in the back just a few minutes ago, the gentleman that got up and left, 2 silver stars, and he said those memories were brought back too many bad memories. He was actually in tears leaving the building. So, you never know who's going to be around you, but, you got to be cognizant of that. Also, Dr. Parks just came back from Vietnam.
Well, I was there on a tour, yeah.
Good. I'd love to hear more about that. One thing I didn't mention about Jimmy is that my kids and Jimmy are second cousins. So my ex-wife was his mom's first cousin. So I was part of the family for quite a few years. But yeah, they don't know each other, aren't they? You know Bethany.
I do.
Yeah. So, but anyway, appreciate you being here. Look at the schedule. There's great talks coming out, and You know, mine's June 8th, so write that down. So. Just kidding. All right, thanks for coming.
God bless you guys. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.